Hey there, what's up, everybody? This is Joe at Beyond Creative and Dealer Lead Pro. Welcome back to another episode of DealerCast. I'm glad to have you here listening in. I've got a really good friend of mine, Kurt Van Ahnen, and he has some really rich history in the industry. What's going on, Kurt? What's up? How's everything?
Dude, everything is awesome, right? So thank you so much. And it's funny, you and I have known each other personally now. I think it's going on 3 years, right?
Yeah, at
It's
least,
just
yeah.
it's just I have one of those stupid last names where nobody can say I have a good friend, Kurt Von. No one believes you.
Von. Did I do a good job? Because I was afraid to butcher it.
No, you nailed it. You nailed it, Kurt Von Ahnen.
Nice.
But
Von Ahnen. Yep.
things are good, man. It's we could take a look at our industry that we're going to talk about today, and we could see some red flags coming and yellow flags coming, but that's why we're having a conversation, right?
100%. 100%. What do you want to talk about today? We've got an upcoming webinar next week on customer retention. Maybe that's a good hot topic to talk about, very often overlooked. What do you think?
I think it's a great intro to next week's webinar. And to be honest with you, Joe, maybe it would be good to talk about why it's a topic for us. Like, you're a BDC guy and people know me as a fixed operations guy. And then we both have a conversation together and then we say, we should train on customer retention. And people might not see the connection there. They might think that's disconnected from what we do, but it's not. It's right in the wheelhouse.
Oh yeah. I mean, it really is one and the other. It's symbiotic. One really can't be without the other. One thing that surprises me, I don't know how you feel about this, like that. I'm kind of shocked. I think this is a little bit different in automotive than it is for power sports, marine, and RV. But I kind of get shocked at like the what's the word I'm looking for? I wouldn't necessarily call it carelessness, but this sort of display from a lot of the GMs or owners where they're not necessarily, I'm heavily generalizing, but they're not necessarily as really focused on like their customer retention is one thing that is like protecting their assets. So they spend all this money for marketing dollars, right?
Yep.
And then, then in some cases, that there may be a systemic problem from within, whether it is in the service department, whether it is in the sales department. And then that provides, whether on a regular basis or on an irregular basis, it provides a really shitty experience, like, user experience for the customer. And then they don't realize that number one is not gonna really inspire people to come back. Or maybe they do realize it, but they don't realize really, the extent of the inner workings of the problem that's causing that. But number two, and what I really wanted to also mention, and I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, is that like, nothing against sales guys, but like a lot of sales guys, they'll go and like they'll just, they make the relationship. A lot of the sales guys will make the relationship. They will give, the extra love to the customer. And so what ends up happening is, that if the GM or ownership didn't actually fix those issues of like between the time that a lead comes in, that's where we come in as like a BDC company, right? We also generate leads. It's another thing we do, but we actually became a BDC lead management company because we saw that disconnect. We're like, okay, leads being generated, and then it's like, what happened? They're not exactly crickets. Nobody contacts them. No, not anything. There's not a set appointment. There's no clear communication. And by the way, I'm not criticizing. Like, I get it. There's a lot of work to go around. There's understaffing, et cetera, et cetera. But that nonetheless, the hard work needs to be done. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I find that very, very particular.
Joe, I tend to be a direct communicator, and even at the risk of maybe upsetting somebody, I like to speak what's on my mind and be truthful. And this is so reminiscent of a conversation I'm having on LinkedIn right now because the IMS shows just got announced yesterday that they were canceling, right? And so people are like, oh, well, where was the ROI on that? And where was this? And where was that? And those are sales type terms. And when I think about our dealerships and our salespeople at our dealerships, they consider themselves in the business of acquisition, right? They're after customer acquisition. They want to get a customer, convert a customer, and sell a unit. And when a lead goes flatlined, it's quite possibly because a salesperson looks at it and goes, that one's not going to go. And they're pre-qualifying people before they even make the effort, right? And they're going after the easy pickings, and they're leaving all the work behind. Right.
Yeah.
But if we do the work, how much can we grow our business? How much can we 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x our business? If we won't do the work ourselves, hire people that'll do the work and make the steps happen. There's steps to a sale that a lot of people just want to bypass or get through. When I talk to people about fixed operations, which is my specialty, people think I'm going to come in with some kind of secret, just do this and you'll increase your sales. Just do this. And I'm like, learn how to answer the phone, learn how to treat people like human beings, learn how to establish the relationship. And then this whole customer retention thing is based on relationship. Now, I mentioned the IMS show. When I worked at the OEMs, and God, I'm going to get shot for this, but my question, that I put on LinkedIn just this morning was, what did the brands do to continue the conversation after the IMS show? The IMS show is a branding exercise. So how do you establish a value for a branding exercise and demand ROI on a single event that a customer attended when it's a branding exercise? So the OEMs put the display there and the brochures there, but how did they ensure the staff that worked that display created a wow experience for the customer that established a relationship with that brand? Well, they didn't. They get volunteers from all the dealerships around to come in and have to work the show, or they fly people in from the corporate office that don't even want to be there, right? And so that experience kind of flatlines. And then the next question is, and this is right up your alley, what did those OEMs do with all that lead generation garbage that they created at the event? What was the funnel like to follow up with those customers from that event? And I know firsthand that those follow-up procedures were not anything close to what you and I would engineer, right? So you look at that and you go, well, what was the ROI from the IMS show? Well, it sucked. Well, it sucked because you can't blame the show. The show worked. But if you don't have processes and procedures in place to nurture the relationship and to grow people to the next level or the next stage, it's going to flatline.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. And I think, when we, do webinars, and also when I'm on sales calls, that's one thing that I'm just constantly talking to, dealerships about, with regards to, like, most dealers that I talk about this topic are incredibly surprised at, like, how many touches it will take to actually initiate the sales process, to actually close the sales process, to be able to get somebody on the phone, whatever the case may be. And, very oftentimes I think that this whole battle that has been fought back and forth between, like, the sales guys and, sales guys and gals, and, like, the GSMs and the GMs and maybe even, the owners, is like, oh yeah, that lead is crappy. That's a tire kicker from Facebook. And oh yeah, this and that. And I always say, no, like, yeah, there are some bad leads. Yes. If you make it too easy, some people will just, for whatever reason, just, like, give up their info on Facebook. It happens where, but they're the kind of the outliers. What ends up happening is it's kind of like that 80-20 rule, and 80% of a lot of those leads need probably like 80 or 90% more nurturing. And none of that is being done, So a lot of dealers right now, and I don't want to put our good friend, Mark Sheffield, on the spot, but he's been kind of, already, like, sounding the alarm. He's been sounding the alarm, rightfully so, on LinkedIn, about, like, dealers, how they need to heed the warning about how this is a season where it's not going to last. And so what a lot of dealers, like, what's crazy is, so at Beyond Creative, for those of you listening that already know us, we have three main offerings, which are lead generation, lead management, and essentially our own CRM, our own everything software. Really, it's the social media scheduling platform, texting, chat, website widget, you name it, CRM. It's called Dealer Lead Pro. But crazy enough, the thing that we have been going like gangbusters with lately has been BDC / lead management. And our sales in lead generation have dropped. Why? Because a lot of dealers right now are experiencing, and I'm not blowing this figure out of proportion. It's literally, it's an average, from all industries, where we know that internet leads since the pandemic hit have gone up roughly 300%. So if the process of follow-up and communication and nurturing was broken or wasn't there, what do? It's a no shit moment, and you want to talk to people about lead management and about BDC, but that concept really applies in so many other ways. It'll apply in the service department and the kind of constant communication that, a service writer should have, with their customer. On Dealer Lead Pro, we set up these automations for service writers so that we set up a pipeline essentially for them. And when a new lead comes in for service, it automatically goes in there. It could be round robin to a service writer, or it could just be there ready for the picking. And then as they go through different stages, so like, let's say, for instance, they've contacted the customer about what their needs are, and they've already scheduled them. So now they put them on a column, and all they have to do is just take the contact card and put it on the column. And then the system automatically sends them an email with their confirmation on the date and time that there's service appointment is happening. Yeah. From there, they'll get also a reminder 24 hours prior, and then either 1 or 2 hours prior, to coming in. So now you're just with those things alone, you are making sure that more people show up and don't blow off, your team when they were supposed to come in. Then the post side of that is, when the vehicle goes into the shop, the service writer, all he needs to do is just move it to the next stage, and automatically the system will text, the customer saying, hey, your baby's in the shop. And then same thing too for when it's ready for delivery or when it's ready for pickup or whatever the case may be. Yeah. And even sending out payment links, for them to clear their entire invoice. Like all of that is available, from within the platform itself. So, I say that for service, not to talk about Dealer Lead Pro, but because I know that's right up your alley, and I know that gets you fired up.
Just think about the last thing that you just did. Everyone's going to hear that and go, oh, whatever. I can do that with a text message, or, I can do that through an integration in Lightspeed, or I can, yeah, you could, but you won't. Right. And so let's get that out of the way. You could, but you won't. And now if you have a system that can have the option of letting the customer prepay before they come to pick up, think about most dealerships and how they operate and where the cashier is for the service department. It's usually not at the service counter, right? It's usually at you got to go upstairs and 3 doors to the left, and there's a little office, or go to the parts counter and we have a cashier there. And then they get to the parts counter and a parts guy goes, oh, that's not my gig. Let me get Susie for you. Right. And the customer's just like, holy crap, I just want to pay my bill. So now imagine the bill's paid. They come in, the service writer goes, oh, it looks like this is already prepaid. Great. Let me just go over the repair with you. See if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. We'll bring the bike around for you, or the UTV or the jet ski or whatever it is. Right. And let me show you what we did. And then, make sure that you're happy with the work. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them for you. Right. And then do an active delivery. And then if you do a proper active delivery, this is all part of the customer retention talk. Right.
Yes.
Are you happy with the work that's done? Yes. Or do you have any questions about your bill? Was it what we quoted to you? Yes. Great. Do you have any friends with a motorcycle, a jet ski, or whatever, an ATV that needs work? Because we work on all makes and models here. right? And ask for the referral and build the business. It's much easier instead of doing cold acquisition, right? And trying to get new customers cold, have a warm introduction, man. Get a referral from somebody.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that this in and of itself boils down to one topic that I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but I feel like it's a thing. Do you think that like the vast majority of GMs and owners don't really know what their customer lifetime value is?
I, yeah, if Mark Sheffield is listening, he might get angry. But 20 club people tend to follow the numbers better, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say 20. Well, they're different.
Yeah.
They're a lot more numbers driven, and I agree with that.
But on a wholesale basis, no. Right. And if they think they have an idea of it, it's skewed somehow, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I was the trainer at Ducati and they sent me to Italy for training. I'm sitting there in the factory in Bologna, just blown away at everything I'm looking at, right? And they tell us right there, they go, we have done the research and have found globally that when a person buys a Ducati, the numbers show that person will own 8 Ducatis within a lifetime.
That's
right?
Amazing.
And
I think you have mentioned that stat to me, and I was just like blown away. That's really cool.
Well, that's because, obviously they're the manufacturer. They have access to buyers' records and all that stuff on a global scale, right? And so they give us that little tidbit of information. And then I take that tidbit of information as a service guy and I go, well, great. Let's say that sales, MSRP is the guy. They put him in F&I, they bang him for points and they bang him for, extended service contracts, warranties, and put him in the gold service club or God knows what, right? Like they got their whole package and they make $3-4 grand on the deal, right? Maybe they make $5 grand on the deal. Great. That's $5,000. Now take a look at the service history or the service lifetime history of a Ducati product. First service, second service, right? Major service. Then take a look at the recalls that Ducatis always have because it's a premium product. There's a lot of things that can go wrong and they do, right? So you get the recalls that are going to come into your dealership. How much does an Akrapovic, I always say it wrong. Hopefully people don't bing me on that one, but how much does one of those performance titanium exhaust systems cost on the new V4 installed, right? Thousands, $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 to change a muffler on a motorcycle, right? And so when you take a look at those service visits dwarf the original sale profit, right? Looking at lifetime value. Now take that customer and say 8 times that. 8 times the $5 grand per bike, $40,000 of profit. And then let's say you make $6,000 on service work profit working on those 8 products, right? So, and I'm just spitballing, that's $48,000. Now you got a customer that's worth $88,000 and you answer the phone like, service Bob.
Yeah, I've got a video out there that is like, it's similar. It's like, thank you for calling ABC Power Sports. How may I help you? And it's like, oh yeah, I'm really looking for a brand new, Wave Runner and maybe a side-by-side too. And, I'll even buy a used one too. So man, you've got some good profitability right there, right? So, like, well, you're kind of shit out of luck. We don't have that right now. So, maybe you can go to, XYZ Motorsports across this. Like, listen, dude, that's obviously hyperbole, but like what's really scary is with how many calls I monitor and listen to and have heard over the years. You're absolutely right. Service, how can I help you? And it's just like, I know they're busy. I know that, I'm not trying to, beat up on on them, but it's, come on, just a little more into it. It would really be important,
So, we said we're going to talk about customer retention today. And then invariably we start talking about the race to the bottom and the whirlpool and performance in the field. And we go down this rabbit hole, you and I, right? But if we get back to the subject of customer retention, take away some of these bits and pieces just from this quick call. It's the people that work at these dealerships are not stupid. I say this all the time. They're not stupid. There's brilliant people out there working at these dealerships. It's just nobody has ever taken the time to invest in them and tell them the proper way to communicate and lead a team.
Yeah, that's very true.
And so you talk to
and by the way, I think that's also very much so a symptom of small businesses in general.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Restaurants. So well, even
Best
like
Buy.
Even like, to be honest with you, like for us, for instance, at my agency, one of the things that I know I constantly have to juggle between resources, time, money, and also giving my people proper training and culture of the company is super important. So what happens is that, to your point, I think, a lot of these guys that are working there, they're just not given that because maybe perhaps, some of the resources haven't been set aside, or the priorities haven't been set, or the resources just aren't there,
Most of the time they're not there. I mean, let's just be frank. I don't have the amount of customers in the Power Sport Academy that I originally thought I was going to get. I'm just being bold, honest. I thought, I'm Kurt von Ahnen. I worked for Ducati. I worked for Suzuki. I put a training program together that's dealer direct, doesn't require travel. Everyone's going to sign up for that. And then I opened the doors up and I got, a trickle, not a flood, right? So I start cold calling dealers, Joe. And I think I told you the story about the one I called in Arizona. I said, hey, can I talk to the general manager? The girl says, sure. He picks up the phone. He goes, yeah, Bob. And I went, hey, Bob, it's Kurt. I'm with Power Sport Academy. First question, have you even heard of us? And he goes, nope.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a weird conversation. And I said, well, we're a company that focuses on helping service departments, grow their parts and labor business. And without hesitation, he goes, nah, we good. and
even after the way he answered the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, is that a one-off? That's a one-off experience. Yes. But when I talk to these dealers and I say, hey, I specialize in showing you how to grow your parts and labor business, invariably, one of their common responses is, oh, man, we ain't got time to train people. We're so busy, we can't even keep up. And then I go, well, how many hours are your 4 technicians generating every month? Oh, well, we had a really busy month last month. We were at 350 hours. Whoa, hold on, right? How many hours should 4 technicians generate? Being busy, you're inefficient.
Right. It's that's very different. Those are two very
that's
different
what I help you with. Just because you feel busy doesn't mean you're productive. Right. And so trying to have those conversations with people, but what's really scary is I can ask a lot of general managers that question. I can say, well, you got 4 technicians back there. How many hours did you generate last week? And they'll go, man, I really don't know. I'd have to check with somebody.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, if all you're worried about is customer acquisition on the sales floor, and you're not tracking the other half of your business through, parts, accessories, and service, then you are missing a huge profit, vertical stream in your business. I don't know if you're thinking about something I just said, or if you were like,
I was thinking, oh shit, my AirPod's about to die. No, I definitely agree with you. It's the question is, why is it, and this is not to make it a play on words, but the question is, why is it such an epidemic? That this is happening. And I have another friend in the industry whose name I won't mention because he ruffles a lot of feathers by saying this. I will say here that I do agree with the notion. You probably would agree with it too. And it's, he says, our industry is behind automotive at least 20 years.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and I used to think at first, I was like, well, maybe just a decade. But no, we're pretty far back behind. And, people like you and I mean, we spend our lives work just really trying to do our best to bring them up to the 21st century. Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know why that is. I don't know why, it's such an epidemic, where, see, the really cool thing about the industry we're in, I know that with car manufacturers, with car dealers, right? They will get a lot more resources. That's why I started Beyond Creative, by the way, because don't hold it against me. In the early 2000s, I started my career in automotive. And, fast forward years later, I became the marketing director at, the world's largest wave runner dealer. They were back then, they still are now. And I was like, oh man, what a substantial difference between the resources that, car dealerships get in all sorts of ways, software, training, consultants, you name it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that was the passion that made me start what I love to do and do it for the industry. But here's what's crazy about it. A car is a necessity. I mean, I know in the United States, we're very lucky that vast majority of us drive. In other countries, it's like, if you're lucky, bicycle, buses, depending on which part of the world you're talking about. But here, long distances, US, Canada, automotive, necessity. Vast majority of people, it's a necessity. A lot of people go into a car dealership, they don't give a shit what they walk out with. I mean, as long as they're like, okay, my payments are good, it's not gonna break down, like that's it.
Yeah.
And I bring that topic back. Why do I say that? Because we are in a passionate industry, and it's just like, why are we not leveraging that? I mean, our people, the cycling, I've just never gotten into it. Not that I don't care for it or anything like that, but I know you're big into the cycling industry too. And they're like even more so. Yeah, exactly. Like they're even more so with regards to, how, dare I say, fanatical. And I don't mean that in a negative connotation, fanatical in the good sense. Like they love their stuff, and what they do. Yeah,
A bicyclist knows what tire is on his bicycle. A bicyclist knows how many pounds of PSI is in their front fork.
Right. Yes.
Yes, whereas a lot of car drivers have no idea how much air goes in their tires.
Right. Yes, exactly. They get very technical and whatnot. And then, you've got motorcycle guys. We're like that too, man. Like as far as like the bicycle guys,
Yeah.
we really, and then there's a lot of guys in the UTV, ATV world, same thing too. A lot of guys with their wave runners, I would still say jet ski, but gosh, Kawi, for as much as I love Kawasaki, I don't know why they don't put the same research and development into their watercraft that they do for their motorcycles, because Kawasaki bikes are my love. I mean, it was my first love. I used to have a 2006. No, sorry. I used to have a 2004. That was my first bike, an 04 Kawasaki Ninja, a ZX6R, which is it's the bad bitch. She can hang with almost 1,000s. Top speed I think was like 169, 170 or something like that. Not bad for 626 cc's I think it was. But see, there you go. There's that passion I'm talking about, right? Then I owned an 06.
I just realized how young you are.
How what?
How young you are.
Yeah. Well, that was also just a little post. That was, I think, in college or right around college. So yeah, it does give you an idea. I mean, I'll divulge my age. I mean, I'm coming to the point where I'm close to my 40s, so that's a nice milestone. But yeah, I'm 37, so definitely I'm a youngin. But I'm kind of this is a bad term. I'm kind of a half breed in between, like, the kids nowadays that are born with like the iPad on their hand, but then they have like no freaking sense. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like no street smarts, no sense. I'm obviously heavily generalizing. My kids are in that generation too, but very often I teach them about digital tools and how to really effectively use them, so I'm in like that sort of, that's why I say half breed, like that. My mom, she's good and she's fluent with computer. My mom just turned 60. But it's not the same.
Yeah.
I've got a lot more. It's like you and I, we can build a workflow, we can build a follow-up sequence, like that. And a lot of other people will be like, what? My
Yeah.
grandmother, God bless her soul, she passed away in her 80s. She learned how to type and all that stuff like in her late 60s, early 70s. And she was kicking ass, like, using QuickBooks and stuff like that,
Lotus,
anyway.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, exactly. I forget how I got all the way there, but the main point is, I don't know why we don't leverage that passion, man. We really, if we did, I mean, just a few, and it's not hard. Wouldn't you say, with the follow-up and the sequences and the nurturing, it's really not that hard. There's a lot of tools out there that,
Well,
the biggest thing,
to a certain point, it's the passion that got them where they're at.
Yes.
A lot of people that own these dealerships are passionate enthusiasts that always wanted to have a dealership. The joke is, what's the fastest way to make a small fortune in motorcycling, right? Start with a big fortune. It's, and we joke, but they got into it because they were passionate and it'd always be cool to have a motorcycle dealership, right? But now there's the other side of the conversation where we have to go, hey, this could really be a formidable business. You could really, leverage this. You could really increase your, efficiency and productivity and profit without beating on your staff and making them miserable to work there. Like you can establish or restore culture through the shop, which will expand through parts and accessories, which will expand through sales. And if you do it correctly and you get the management team working as a team instead of combating one against the other, right? Because salespeople always think that service never does what sales needs, and service always thinks that sales takes advantage of service, right? If you actually had everyone work together and understand that they're all major portions of a shopping mall that make one awesome mall when they work together.
Yeah.
And that's the customer experience, right?
Yeah.
The customer experience is what establishes the customer retention. And even in automotive, you and I were talking about automotive. We both have a background in automotive, but what's the abandonment rate for customers in automotive? Well, it's 77%. 77% of the people that buy a new car never go back to the dealership for service.
Yeah. And a lot of them, by the way, they get taken, and this is something that's an important topic. And maybe we can delve into it on the webinar. Maybe we'll just leave it for another webinar or another podcast. But nothing against sales guys, love them all. But a lot of times you heard me mention earlier with regards to the good experiences given by the sales guy, and then maybe the GM or the owners are not seeing that there's a systemic problem in the journey. And then guess what happens? The dealer fronted all the risk and the cost to get that customer to the showroom floor. Mm-hmm. And then when that sales guy leaves,
customer's gone.
A customer often goes with them. Exactly. Yeah. And that's something that, again, love sales guys. My lead management is, helps them tremendously because they can now get to build better relationships. But to your point, I think that the retention would be much higher. Doesn't go to say that some people are still going to follow their sales guy. That's going to continue to happen. But I think that dealerships will see a much better return on that one original lead that they originated by being able to keep for longer, on average, that one lead that turned into a customer for the first time.
How many dealerships that you start to work with, Joe, have the customer experience of that salesman is the one human contact point, other than signing the contract with the F&I person for 20 minutes, right? That salesperson is that only human tactile contact for the customer, right? And when you don't put processes and procedures in place that extend the relationship and transition the relationship through parts, accessories, and service, you end up with customers that have one point of contact, which is sales. And then what happens? Sales doesn't want to deal with that guy anymore because he's already done the acquisition process and made the sale. He's already got his commission for the work that he's done, and he thinks his job is done. He's working on the next round of customers and the next round of commissions.
That's
And
right.
so a lot of customers just get dropped. They get abandoned. It's not even a matter of, and then when they want to buy a new vehicle, maybe they look up, George from so-and-so. They go, oh, well, he's not here anymore. He's down the road at the Harley dealer. And they even tell them where he went, right? Off they go. But the customer wouldn't be looking for George so fervently if they had an existing transitioned relationship with the rest of the store already.
Yes, I completely agree with that.
And when I run a service department, I don't let salespeople hang out in the service department, and then that's, I've had dealer owners argue with me, like frothing at the mouth, arguing with me, right? Well, I put them back there to cherry pick customers for sales. No. If you run a proper service department, that relationship with service will be good enough to where the service manager will say to the customer at some point, hey, we got to look at your bike. It's going to need this, and this time. We talked about this last visit, and here we are. It's kind of a decision point, Mr. Customer. Do you want to do the repairs and maintenance on your current vehicle? Or would you like me to turn you over to one of our sales guys that I trust to put you into the right vehicle moving forward, right? And transition the relationship from service back to sales. The whole idea is, it's like social media consulting, right? When I do social media consulting with a business customer, I'll say, you want to get someone into a circular conversation. You want to bounce them from one account to the next account, to the next account, to the next account. It's the same with running a dealership. I want to take that customer and I want to bounce them from sales to parts and accessories to service, to our rental department if we have one, and just keep that customer in the recycle mode.
Yep, absolutely. It's critical. It's critical. And even with things, I know, some dealerships are, and this is one topic that I'll kind of spoil it. This a little tidbit, something from that we're going to talk about next week in the webinar. But one of the things that are the topics on there is like, okay, what's the low hanging fruit? Like, what's something that I can kind of quickly, start really, like, where can I begin relatively easily where I can now start turning the customers, the first time customers, into repeat customers. Yeah. And yeah. I know the answer to that. So I'll leave that one up to you.
Well, you know what, dude? When we talk about low hanging fruit, I think we need to be expressly clear, especially with this webinar coming up. This ain't some light switch situation where we're telling people, hey, watch our webinar for an hour or two and then go turn your dealership upside down and piss off your staff. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Culture is a slow process, and you have to fix the culture before you can establish process and procedure. Right. Because if the culture's not right, your staff's not going to follow the new process or procedure. They're going to go, I don't know why this idiot's having me do this stupid stuff anyway. This doesn't work. Right. So you need to have good culture first and then processes and procedures. But, the low hanging fruit for me is your own existing CRM tool, your dealer communication system, whatever it is that you call it. You have a database of names and phone numbers and addresses that you already sold vehicles to that haven't been to your service department.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going, which is, some dealers are in tune with this and they do it quite a bit, right? And then they keep people on their marketing bucket. But how does all of this tie in together? Because the ones that are like, they're like, oh yeah, I'm already doing that. Yeah, but that's not the point. Let's think big picture too. And so, for instance, we talked about follow-up and nurturing, and vast majority, I would say 90+% of the dealers that we speak to aren't doing it. And so, but what happens once, you've passed 2-3 weeks of a persistent follow-up of somebody, who was a new lead and they're no longer a lead? Well, you're going to put them in your, continuous marketing efforts as far as like email campaign. But to your point, yes, like people that haven't bought from you in a certain amount of time, for instance. I mean, inside of your own CRM, inside of your own email marketing platform, Constant Contact, MailChimp, whatever you use, you can use Dealerly Pro for it, whatever. You go in and you essentially can reach out to these people, not only, to try to, incentivize the sales, which, some people right now may be like, why would I do that if I don't even have anything to sell right now? Well,
Yeah.
glad you asked, because
I'm glad you asked.
I'm glad you asked, because no, what you could also do is go to your CRM and pull a report of people that haven't bought from you in 2 years plus, let's just say. And you could, hey, we're paying top dollar right now. We'll buy yours even if you don't buy ours, And so now you're feeding both things, both needs that you've got, and that's a a very important part of it. And I think it's something we should talk about too, during our webinar next week. So
yeah, well, there's not a better time to have the conversation, Joe. I mean, there never is. Right now is always the right time, but the stimulus checks have been spent. The supply chain's broken, right? Inflation is coming to get us, right? Whether we want to act scared or not, it's just a fact, right? Like diesel in California today is $6.69 a gallon.
wow.
Right. So when I leave my house in Southern California, there are times where I've said to myself, can I plan this trip to like stop off in Vegas or Arizona to fill up again? It's just that big of a difference to cross the state line and fuel up. We have to get smart about these businesses. Dealers got into a frenzy because the demand was so high during the COVID crisis, right? And I said from the beginning, in March of 2020, I put an article out that said, you're going to have more customers than you've had in a decade because social distancing is cool. And this never was not cool. It just wasn't accepted with all the other norms of society, when you got families and all that stuff, right? But then they said you can social distance, and museums and restaurants and other activities are closed. So everyone said, well, shit, I'm going to buy an RV, a mountain bike, and a motorcycle, right? So everyone did that. Everyone that was going to do that kind of did that. And now we kind of have that elevated demand. And now look at where we're at, right? The stimulus checks aren't coming. Inflation came as the payback for the stimulus checks, and our supply chain's been broken. And for dealers that didn't protect their margin through all of that demand area, they might not have great financial status moving into this next era. And I think it's super important that that customer retention conversation happens, and we go, okay, the people that have made a commitment to our dealership already have a better chance of spending more money with us than an acquisition customer.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you. I think next week's going to be a great continuation of this conversation. Can you tell people, to our audience, our listeners that are tuning in today, tell them a little bit about, you already kind of gave me a little bit of intro, but tell me a little bit about what your specialty is, and tell me or tell them how they can reach out to you, how they can find you, what are the best methods, to get in touch with you.
Yeah. The best way to reach me in a power sports related issue is just to go to powersportacademy.com. So, and it's power sport, not with an S. So powersportacademy.com. If you go to powersportsacademy.com, you go to a bodybuilder site.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So it's powersportacademy.com. And, I've had such a large focus on fixed operations, communication, and leadership through the service desk, and putting culture into the back end of the shop. That's like my number one focus. And people say, well, why? Right? Well, when I work with a dealership and I see the change that it makes, personally, for those people at the counter, the personal development and how those skills flourish, it's really rewarding. When you see reduced employee turnover, higher profits, higher productivity, higher efficiency, it's huge.
Yeah.
And people don't realize what the potential is. So many owners make an assumption that they got what they're going to get and they're just going to have to live with it. And that guy's just not, that guy's just not on the ball. And I hope I find a better guy. You're not going to find a better guy.
Right.
You're just not there.
You'll
There's
just run
not,
into somebody who's trained
yeah,
instead, if
there's
you
not
do
a,
it.
there's not a warm bench out there. There's just not a warm bench of willing employees to move and take over your shop. You have to build your own. You have to invest in your people. For so long, and this is part of your earlier conversation, OEMs invested in training dealer staff, right? Think back when Honda had a service writer training program. It was like a 2-week program, right? It's not there, right? Yamaha has an online course, but they don't have a program, and they certainly don't have live coaching. So I developed a program that allows people to train from their own location virtually, have live coaching available to them on a monthly basis, and I give them homework to make sure that I can check on their progress and then report to the owner of the business what the progress is, and then track numbers to see what the ROI is on the training for them.
That's
so
excellent.
Yeah, there's like no OEM that's going to give you that kind of service or those types of results, because it's very personal. An OEM trains to, this is our standard and everyone needs to do this. And when I work with a dealership, I go with, hey, every dealership's got their own fingerprint. Let's see what your potential is, and let's see what we can get for you. What are your goals, and let's see how realistic that is, and what are the next steps.
Yeah, it's funny because that's definitely our philosophy too, which is going in on a very customized, sort of engagement. Because, I think that you're right. It's from the OEM side. I mean, they've got to do it with massive numbers. So it's not that I'm faulting them either. I'll fault them for not having training programs, but at least if you have a training program, even if it is, kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily cookie cutter, but maybe outside of the box, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I understand that there's got to be a certain efficiency to it, but I do think, and correct me if I'm wrong, dealers will be much better off with much better having somebody like you that, has the experience from within the OEM, but then also, will customize things to the current culture, to the culture they want to get to, and to a culture that's also aligned with our industry, with our passionate industry.
Yeah. From a dealer perspective, I always put in there that it's dealer focused training. And I'm hoping over time that people recognize that it's not OEM focused training. I developed the program for Ducati that taught service writers. I developed the program for Suzuki that taught service writers, but those programs were OEM focused. How do we increase the amount of OEM parts that go on our products? How do we reduce the number of buybacks, related to our products? And that's the type of training that's been force fed through the OEM channels. And you can't blame them, because as a business, they're obligated to look after their interests first. But when I have the opportunity to create a dealer focused program, now I can say, hey, I'll show you how to work with the OEMs and not for the OEMs. You're an independent business, and this is the best way for you and your best opportunity to grow your people, increase your productivity, your efficiency, and your profit, because you're a business. You don't work for the OEM, you work with the OEM. And once that sign's hanging on your building, it's your business to run, not someone else to support externally.
And I totally 100% agree with that. I couldn't agree with that more. But I also want to say that it's noteworthy that, there's sometimes seems to be a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Animosity between, dealerships and OEMs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very noteworthy to say that, from at least within the side of the dealer, hey, you know what, guys, the OE wouldn't exist if it wouldn't be for you guys. Now, there are some exceptions, Elon Musk is kind of breaking that, that dealer aspect.
Consumer
where,
direct, yeah.
Right, exactly. He's consumer direct. But, I wouldn't be surprised that there's going to be a decent chunk of manufacturers that eventually will start to follow that route. It's going to take forever, though. And I don't think that everyone in our industry, or even close to it, will eventually follow that model. And there's a lot of good reasons why. Tesla is what it is because, of of their kind of demographic. The people that buy a Tesla are people that would be comfortable ordering it directly, from the internet. And even so, a lot of people don't know this, but Tesla does have some few, I guess we could call it, right, they're retail centers, because they're not really dealers. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so because they're still leaving as a need for that. So do I think more people will follow suit with that? Yes, as far as that model goes. But I think for the vast majority of it, yeah. Anyway, I got off on a tangent, but the whole point is that, yeah, you know me. The whole point is that that dealers need to be cognizant. It's a little word of encouragement for them, but they need to be cognizant that like our OEMs really wouldn't be without them. It's a symbiotic relationship, and it's a very important one. So
the more knowledgeable and confident a dealer principal can be about what the rules of engagement really are, the less animosity there is with the OEM.
Yes.
Right.
Agreed.
So, when the OEM says, hey, we're rolling out a new spring dating program and you only got to take $15,000 worth of these oil filters, right? And you're some little dealership in Nebraska somewhere, right? And you're like, well, holy crap, I don't want to buy $15,000 of filters. What the hell am I going to do with all that, right? And you can't discount them on eBay, and you can't sell them online, and you can't this, and you can't that, and you can't the other, and all these rules. And then think of how many dealers just go, well, it's the program, I guess I got to sign it, right? And it's like, no, it's your business. They're simply a distributor. So if you don't want to take advantage of the program, if you don't want to take advantage of the program, fine. Order your stuff like, every other small shop, and, get the onesies, twosies, pay the extra 15 or 20%, cost of entry for that component, but know that you're still making the difference between wholesale and retail on the service ticket anyway.
That's absolutely right.
Because what you're spending on square footage to store the $15,000 in filters is going to soak up your profit anyway.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I get into that with a lot. Like when I work with these shops, dude, it's like, service writer, service manager, communication, leadership. But once that culture is established and you can start doing processes and procedures, dude, I've gone in with a team and done physical inventories at dealerships. I'll say, when's the last time you did a physical inventory? And I've had owners go, what do you mean? We do the printout and we send that to the government every year. I go, no, when's the last time you physically counted everything in your parts department? And they hadn't.
That's bananas.
Yeah. And so I'm like, well, then I guess we're going to bring in a team and do an inventory. And then you do the inventory and find out, you're missing $60,000 worth of stuff, right? So where's the stuff, right? And at least I got you a write-off for this tax season, but where's your stuff? So then audit the processes, right? Do you have a thief on hand, or do you have a poor process, right? But all of that, dude, it's here we are, low-hanging fruit and more business stuff to talk about, but and that's not customer retention talk, I guess. So I guess I went off the rabbit there.
No, you're good, man. You're good. It doesn't matter. I think that, what in my mind, what was important today was to, present you, talk about our friendship, talk about our passions for the industries, and industries meaning power sports, marine, RV. For you, I think it's mostly power sports and also in the cycling world as well. Do you do any consulting for the cycling world or not?
I tried.
Okay. Fair enough.
The weird thing is, at Suzuki, I was in charge of automotive, marine, and motorcycle. And marine was treated better than motorcycle at the time because of the way so I became a marine guy for 4 years at Suzuki. I introduced the DF350 to the country, taught all the technicians, went over to Japan and learned on it. And I'm actually working with a really large marine retailer right now to put a training program together for them right now, which will be a custom training platform just for that company.
Nice. Yeah. So, fair enough. You tried,
Yeah. Bicycles are hard. So you said automotive, right? And then back on the timeline is motorcycle, right?
Yep.
Further back on the timeline is RV and marine, right? As far as being like 25, 30 years behind automotive on processes. Dude, bicycles don't even have processes. I went to a nationally known bicycle retailer with my Giant And I love the team there. They're great people. But I left with about $300 of free stuff on my bike. And I'm like, dude, are you sure this is right? And I'm trying to go over the repair order with them. And I'm like, I told you to do all this stuff and you did all this stuff. How come you're not charging me for this stuff? And he goes, no, you're cool, bro. It's all right. It's all good. And I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
and
So
I'm like,
you had to like almost like beg him like, hey, charge me, man. Like, what's up?
yeah.
What's up with this?
And I'm like, this
Wow.
is a national well-established chain, right? And I'm going, oh, the work I could do here. The work I could do here.
You ain't kidding, man. You ain't kidding.
Nah, bro, you're good.
You're good. It's all good, man. It's all good. It's all good. That's nuts. I mean, that's really something that's insane. So, all right. Well, we're gonna wrap it up for today. Give our listeners one final little tidbit of like any kind of final thoughts, and then your contact info, and we'll wrap up, and we'll catch them on the hopefully on next week's webinar, and if not, also on our next podcast.
Yeah, well, the best thing to reach me on is powersportacademy.com. And then what people probably don't know is I actually do micro moments. So if you follow me on the Facebook page, which is Power Sport Academy and Facebook, periodically I throw up just a quick 2-3 minute video about like the tip of the day. Put a sign in your parking lot that tells people where the service department is and watch your business grow.
Yeah, I love that. That's pretty awesome.
Brush the gravel out of the curb to your parking lot, watch your business grow. It's just make it inviting, and so there's so many short little things that we can talk about or do. And so I try to take those really short subjects, put them into micro moments and throw them up there on Power Sport Academy, and it's free. We've got a free course on Power Sport Academy, getting started with service, which is fantastic for newbies in the service department, as well as people that have been doing it for 20-25 years. Because even if you've been doing it for 25 years, there's going to be a gold nugget that goes off that goes, oh crap, I could do that. And then implement that in your business. And even if it's just a little bit of growth, it's a little bit of growth.
Exactly.
If you put development and progress on the forefront of your brain, you'll focus on it and you'll make it happen.
100%. I agree. It takes time and dedication, but putting it there is the important part. And I think that's where a lot of people just kind of fall by the wayside, so to speak, where and I
want to be like super clear, because now I'm a little scared after we talked. People might think that we're asking them to double down, triple down, work 80 hours a week and kill themselves. I'm not asking for that. If people implement what I teach, and I know if they implement what you teach, we actually show them how to save time and be more efficient.
Yeah, agreed.
I have service managers that are managing their departments instead of their departments managing them. I walk into a dealership and I see frazzled people running from phone calls and people yelling and screaming and technicians threatening to quit and all kinds of craziness. And if they take the training and they take a little bit of coaching and they implement just a little bit about what we teach, we can watch them start to regain control of their daily life.
Yeah, man. Agreed. I think I would have to double down on that. It's super important, to understand that, hey, this is really about making your life easier and better. So for us, that's what it is on, as a BDC company, also as a marketing company with, done for you services. So, but I'll wrap up with that thought. Unless you have anything else to add. And I do think that what you said, super important, which is you're not doing this. I mean, there's probably a front end heaviness to it where you set the time aside, you set it up, but then it's just like, oh my God, grab the Mai Tai, and kind of, I'm not going to say kick your feet up, you're not going to be, but there'll be a lot more moments where it's like you mentioned, it's not the craziness, and there'll be quieter times. There's a flow, it makes sense, as opposed to just like everybody, it's like pulling teeth, it's very different. It's very different. And that's what we're, I think, promoting. So cool deal, man. Well, I'm Joe from Beyond Creative. I'm the owner and CEO. And my guest has been Kurt Van Ahnen. He's a good friend of mine. He's a corporate trainer. Yeah, you can reach him. It's powersportacademy.com, and that's singular, powersportacademy.com. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. We appreciate you. We're looking forward to another episode with you guys.